In this video, I'm going to concentrate on the best type of punishment against the worst type of man who are doing BS, bullying, oppressing. And I have to do it because it's the only way to get them off of my back. I'm actually doing this video because I don't feel bugged and annoyed. I don't feel harassed. I don't feel that they have the upper hand, even if they do. Because if I tell myself psychologically that it's the other way around, I have to deny myself reality in order to be stronger than their reality. Because when a BS type of man knows that he has a power over the woman, his reality over her reality, he then wins and he then gets away with abuse. So the best way the woman can do self-defense is never allow his reality to dominate your reality. Even if it is the case that he has the upper hand, that he has more weapons than you, he has more money than you, he has more holidays than you, he has more medication than you, he has more friends than you, he has more of a family than you, and more of everything than you. Even if it is the case, do not give him the benefit of the doubt, because that was my biggest mistake. To say, well, I'll trust you a little bit. If you give this type of an abuser who is doing the BS, even 10% out of 100%, and you know it is 10% trust, he will deliberately tell everybody that you trust him 100%, even though you don't. And even the fact that it has happened to me, and I wanted to find out what else he had up his sleeve, what other tricks he did. So it wasn't only about me. It was about other people he was abusing. I wanted to find out exactly what he was up to. So I'm going to give a few examples of what these bad couples do. So first example is a man who would only have a relationship with a woman to make her have the same disease as him. So if he has AIDS or cancer, he would do it in spite to make her suffer the same as he is suffering. The other type would be he would only have a relationship with a woman to get her pregnant and then leave her. The other type would be he has a desire to have group sex. The other type of a horrible BS man would be he would find out what you want and would make sure that you would never get what you want. He would make prophecies and predictions against the woman to make sure she never gets what she wants. And the last type is he would find out what you don't want and would make sure to give you everything that you don't want, which is very similar to what you do want and make sure that you never get what you want, which is very similar, however very different. They're both extremes. And so this is a type of a monstrous type of man who has never been punished and who are obviously gods with a small g. Yeah. And they would, in all these 5 categories I've mentioned, prolong that suffering that they have created, that they have mastered, and that they, all these bad men would do to destroy a woman's life so that he can dominate. You'll never get what you want, or you'll get everything that you don't want, or I will make you sick forever, or I will abandon you and leave you alone with a child to take care of alone. Or what was the other thing I said? So, yeah, I'm trying to remember everything repeated. So since bad men do this, also bad women do these type of things to be a negative control over somebody's life. And it's very difficult to escape or not to be noticed. Once these type of abusers get their hooks in you, it's very difficult to remove the hook, remove the stinger, and escape. It's virtually impossible to escape. And these 5 main categories, what both genders do, even LGBTQ, do to each other, to harm each other in order to control one another. So it's help to harm or harm to help, which is a toxic, dysfunctional relationship. And when they find out that you don't like them, they would follow you and ruin your life. Or they would accuse you of following them and ruin your life as a smear campaigner. They would accuse you of having a relationship with that individual only for money, even if that's not the case. They would insult you and make you want to feel bitter or envious, even though you haven't done that the same type of retaliation. They would start building in a construction site as general builders at 8 o'clock in the morning. That sounds like a giant fart. And so they would make rules and regulations that are nightmarish, that are greater than anybody else. So I'm not here to convert many people to stop being abusers. I am not here to condemn many people to stop being abusers. I am here to make people aware of the result of how someone can ruin somebody's life or reputation. I am here to be an open channel for Christ to use me about Christ's teachings. I don't want to only preach without putting it into practice, and that we should test every spirit. Some men have become so bitter, they've been watching me, and they've deliberately had sex with another woman so that they could somehow make me feel jealous. And I'm not like that. I'm not a slag. I'm not a loose woman. I never have been. I've been a single mum, a devout Christian, and I think this is unmerciful. This is merciless. And this is the fact that if you cannot be trusted in small things, you cannot be trusted in big things. So Jesus talks about the mustard seed. And that special story about trusting one another and a healthy relationship, first of all, faith in God. Second of all, finding your relationship to be appropriate, even when the bully continually misappropriates it. So it's important to focus on the mustard seed and the yeast of the Pharisees, founded in the book of Matthew, chapter 13, book of Mark, also, chapter 4, and Luke, chapter 13. So as a result, we have no face. Why do they call it Facebook? They should call it a faceless book. They should call it a horror movie. Why do they call it a YouTube when so many call it a screw tube? So I shouldn't be ashamed or held responsible for somebody else's actions, somebody else's decisions about who they believe I am, even if they are a multi-billionaire. So they've come and invaded me. They've judged me. They've watched my bank account and my details, and it's criminal behavior. And then they would project that criminal behavior and attempt to incriminate me and blame me for their wrongs. So I am overwhelmed how much they can trick, how much they can perverse and obscure justice. In many parts of Asia, this is normal for both sides of genders when you are rich. But it is not normal for a Christian life when you are rich to use your money to flaunt your royalty, to flaunt your importance and your fame. In a Christian life, that is not normal. Somebody at least half decent is not normal, even if that individual is religious or not. You could be a humanist and still be half decent. You could even be an atheist and still be half decent. You could be non-religious and still be half decent. It's about the very rich versus the non-rich and how they get to exercise the power of abuse and then incriminate somebody that opposes them, who challenges them and punishes them. So the best part of punishing the wicked and the wrongdoer who are rich is not to take them to court, is not to retaliate. It's not to start a fire, like a passionate, exciting argument. That's the worst thing anyone could do, someone who is very rich or someone who is very demon-possessed. It makes it worse. The only thing that one can do, someone who's very rich, flaunting their abuse of power or possessed, is to remain neutral. But not necessarily cool, calm and collected in an emergency. I think it's very dumb to remain cool and calm and collected in an emergency, because it's better to flatter and to flapper and to make lots of noise. You would be seen by more people. Then you have more choice and more option who you would accept to help you. When you're quiet, cool, and calm and collected, less people see you, you have less choices. So I'd like to have many counsellors, many advisors, however, those who are respectful towards me. And this is how I receive my peace and my healing and my health and my sleep for a clean conscience. But there are also a type of men who would never raise from the dead. They would never want to recover. They would never want to be healed. I don't want to just focus on men being dysfunctional. Many women do this. But because they've targeted me on social media, this is why I'm going to particularly say man, because they are their main agenda is to target the most vulnerable woman, as in my case. Impediment of what the Bible says about the blind men. I think it is at the swimming pool at Bethsaida in the New Testament, the possessed boy, the man who was born blind, the lame, deformed individual or crippled, Lazarus who raised from the dead, the men who had leprosy, the man who had dropsy, I don't know what that is, and the blind man at Jericho. And so these are all supposed to be negative mixed with positives. There are some decent men who are the opposite of being dysfunctional. They had so much faith. Even the Roman soldier who traveled for miles to visit Jesus 2,000 years ago, he made the initiative to visit Jesus, and he said, "My daughter is far away. She is sick, but you can help her. Even where you are, you don't even have to travel that far." And he had one of the most amazing faiths that in spirit we can travel. It's like time traveling, or something greater than time traveling, to be able to speak into existence the life source and cure a healing. So that's so amazing. He did that for the Roman soldier. He didn't do that for Lazarus because nobody believed. He did it for the Roman soldier. He didn't do it for the Jewish soldier and his family, for Lazarus. He did it for the Roman soldier coming from Italy. I think he was friends with tax collectors. Jesus also healed the deaf man and the blind man because of faith. So faith is everything to do with being able to trust and to have mutual respect and to appropriate your relationship with the man. So these three things for trust. Is he uncle? Is he granddad? Is he a father type? Is he a brother type? Is he a best friend, boyfriend type? What type is he? To appropriate your relationship. Any man who misappropriates your relationship deliberately, who abuses your wishes and feelings, and is hiding in the disguise of his professional status, hiding in the disguise of his rich in the bank status, so everybody automatically likes him and would automatically dislike the woman who's being abused. Or you must have let him. You should be ashamed of yourself. I'm like, no, I did not let him, and no, I'm not ashamed of myself. It should be the other way around. He imposed himself on me, and he should be ashamed of himself. So we need to do everything we can as a woman to remove this hard and abusive type of man who is constantly imposing the past or some type of hardship or something that is supposed to be there for God's glory. He will turn it around for shame and ugliness. He would impose his ugliness onto the woman. You cannot stop an abuser. However, you can do these 3 things. Be mutual, be appropriating, and realize that you can never escape. If you try and escape, you're doing self-harm. You can confront, you could assert, and you can wait for him to taste his own poison, taste his own medicine, taste his own nastiness. Wait for it. I'm not the type of person that would say, "Well, I hate I told you so." I hate to say "I told you so." I'm not that type of person. I'm not a know-it-all. That's just not me. But having a physical handicap and being paralyzed and having pain, physical pain, is bad enough to have emotional pain, which is as bad as being physically beaten up. And this is what these bad men do. Any man who is spiritually blind means that he's open to demon possession. To make the lie stronger than the truth, he will betray and destroy in the wrong direction. So the very one he's supposed to destroy, the very one he's supposed to betray, he endorses, he kisses, he embraces, he protects, because it's a demon. So the demon possessed is normally mute, silent, or robotic. He would talk over and over again about the same disgusting and despicable thing, a disrespectful thing, and would focus only on the negatives. So this is what a demon possessed does. And the story that Jesus talked about, the men with leprosy, he all of them were cured except for one, and all of them forgot about the miracle, had left Jesus, except for one that turned around and said, "Thank you, thank you." There's gratitude. Yeah. So all of them have like a story to it. Who is the opposite of the possessed man, of the demon spirit? So calming down every type of disorder that is not demon possessed is giving people the freedom to choose. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. If you're confronted by somebody who constantly assumes something is that isn't, that person is extremely dangerous in a working environment, in a social environment. Anybody who assumes is extremely dangerous in both personal and professional environments. And so, yeah, they should then not have very important job role or social roles. They shouldn't be. But if they have a lot of money, they can be. And so, oh God, I need to use this video because I'm annoyed with the noise at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's like a giant pig snorting. There is a type of a man through his personality that can curse and condemn a totally innocent person, which is a type of a demon possessed that if you do an exorcism on, you could be harmed, an exorcist. You could be cursed for trying to remove a demon from someone. And that type of personality example is somebody who would make a wish but would condemn you for fulfilling that wish. So they don't like themselves. If you like them, you end up being cursed and condemned. They could have the most bubbly personality and they could look very beautiful to look at. But if you like them, you end up being condemned by them. So these are the worst type of demons. Compared to the demon possessed, who is controlled by a mother-in-law, for example, or controlled by a toxic woman. That type of demon possessed is easier to cure and remove his demons, particularly of prolonging somebody's suffering, which is wicked. It's often the strong silent type that has that bad type of demon. My dad has that type of demon. And they do personality soul swapping. They do a lot of soul swapping and are constantly looking for the potential of group sex and adultery, which is disgusting. It makes me literally feel like vomiting. Because they're false witnesses. And they don't believe in salvation. They think it's too good to be true. And they are stuck in their ways. This is the type of demon that can easily be dispossessed and cured. However, the other type of demon that cannot be easily dispossessed or cured is the one that always interrupts you, is the one who is a know-it-all, is the one who looks beautiful, and is the one who is the most bubbly. If you grant them any of their wishes and feelings, whatever they want, used by being a witty personality, charming personality, they are the most dangerous to dispossess the demon. They have modernized things, they have traditionalized things, not for good, for doing bad. So getting the grip of, according to the Bible, our persecutions and tribulations and testimonies is to do this video, to remove the doubt from people's minds so that we are a new tribe on YouTube. It doesn't always have to be ScrewTube. We're a new tribe on Facebook. It doesn't always have to be faceless. It is similar to lighting a light on a candle or any other type of electrical light. It is not for dramatization. It is not for making a spectacle over something. It is not for mocking somebody that is disfigured. It is not for creating somebody to suffer or have sorrow. So it's a misuse in that case. It goes against community standards. So when you have a rich person say that his community standards is more important than your community standards in order to put you off the internet, it's the devil. So the devil and the survivors of abuse versus the devil's advocates, so-called antichrists because they're always lying and accusing, or they're breaking the law. Social media is there just to give us relief, to be a new tribe, or bring God into authority and bringing God into glory, splendor, versus the hell angels, who are gruesome, and it's constant horror, constant war. So in the fullness of the type of perfection God is looking for, there's only one type, and that is being able to love myself, forgive myself, so that I can love another and forgive another. However, I am together. However, I'm not going to forgive another who God doesn't want to forgive. God will not forgive certain sins, and God will amplify that. In God's book of life, versus those who are going to go to die. They're going to die without God's grace and mercy. So I'm not going to be moving. I shall not be moved. I shall not doubt that God is in control of heaven and of hell. I will not doubt that the devil's star and fame will fall, and God's star will remain forever in its proper place. And this is what persecuted people need to remember. The only way is up. So when we are down, we're going up. When we're down, we're down. We're up, we're up. Because when we are weak, God is our strength. God is always up in God's proper place. So at the moment, I am being attacked left and right and centre by an invasion of a fierce army, which is satanic, which means they want to totally destroy me. Either by perverse pleasure or some other terrible thing. Troublemaking. Strike. Hit. Either by a plague or by some type of demonic bad thing waiting to happen. And I have to expect it according to them. And this is how they've attacked me for using fair community standards and my internet the way I want to, not the way they want to. So they want to retaliate. And so I've spoken about me in the times when I was a mother. I've spoken about motherhood. I've spoken about dragons that want to swallow me whole. Bad dragons, good dragons. Bad dinosaurs, good dinosaurs. Which represents a symbol and a sign of social justice versus injustice. And how different we all are. We can't constitute it all in one mind, only in the devil. We have to constitute it in one mind in Christ. Because humankind in the devil will always be confronted by hostility, hate crime, and horrible death cults. According to the Bible, no one's going to escape, and they're going to have a paralyzing fear because we have resisted that. However, God will ratify the hands of Christ and the holes in Christ, all the wounds, Isaiah 53, in order to receive the fulfillment according to God's scars and wounds of being cured, and that death is not going to hold him down. He's not going to be limited. He's not going to be forced to be something that he's not, in the infinite power of heaven angels versus the hell angels. So this is how we become legitimate, true, genuine Christians and true religious people that have a perspective that God is ultimately the judge and the hero before any man. So there are two different types of apocalypses. There is the professional world. There's also the personal world, and the battle for me is when it is mixed, when it's a bit of both. Because it's bad enough to have things happen to you through domestic abuse privately, and then it all comes out into the public, where you're publicly humiliated and blamed for everything, which is savage. It's just hostile power. It's brutal to say that you're blamed for everything and you're surrounded by your enemies and you have to expect to sleep with a skeleton and to live with a skeleton, never be rewarded for anything good that you do in the world, and your children turn against you because you're not wealthy or because you don't have medical help. That is horrifying. More than a horror film. To say that everything or anything you do is never good enough, is never sufficient. You don't have enough. Never. And because you're lacking these things, you could never be satisfied according to the world standards, but not according to the Christians. In God's presence, we can be satisfied. In the contrast to those who are never satisfied because they're always lacking or they're always missing something. So they're self-righteous individuals. So I used to think that a typical mule, stubborn as a mule, a horse, or a cow, or a bull, is very stubborn. And I've come to realize that there is some animal creature sharing in our humanness, in our humanity. The one that's actually even more stubborn is a bird. A bad bird is more stubborn than a bad horse or a bad cow or a bad bull. And I can't believe it. In the matters of consciousness, the bird collects negative energy and will stubbornly not let go. So they're empowered by negative energy. Not all birds, but most birds. They have this memory, and they also do self-harm with it. So they would know that they can't fly through a window, but they would carry on trying to fly through the window, through the glass, which is dumb and stubborn, even after having a seizure, which is compared to the Jezebel spirit in the Bible, and those who believe that they're always right, even though that they're always wrong. So the bird in the animal kingdom is spiritually more stubborn than a dog, a mule, cow, or a pig. The bird. So the bird is also the key to release release souls from hell, but God's intervention to remove every type of negativity, every type of darkness, every type of slavery where you are exiled, and to anticipate doing the will of God, even when you're compromised or compressed in less favorable conditions. God can enable us to do all things in human kindness, to accomplish many things. And that's why God is so great, so good. To persevere, not only for self-preservation, to make progress, not only for self, and to magnify God's majesty and authority. That's right. And so this is God's instruction according to the Bible, what I have just described. The attitude is, if I can't always be happy, if I can't always have everything I want or need, past, present, and future, God can reveal God's presence to me. And by His Spirit and by His stripes and His bruised hands, in the example of God being the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Moses, the burning bush, who was healed, the fire that did not burn. So that was an immediate fulfillment and a release. I don't feel happy, but I feel fulfilled because I know that in God's presence I have everything, even when I have nothing. So this is the majesty of God. I can make progress even if I'm going round in circles in the middle of no man's land or a dead end everywhere I turn. God can still make me accomplish some basic thing that doesn't necessarily make me feel happy. It makes me feel like bubbly and positive this, positive that. No, it makes me feel fulfilled, that I'm in God's presence. God is helping me to cope with the little I can, making the best of the worst situation. And yes, sometimes giving somebody the benefit of the doubt, even if they attack you for it. God will manifestate and be a faithful witness. And it's a relief because there's so many false witnesses. And there's so many individuals that are they don't have any shame. Or they cause confusion, chaos, and misunderstanding, and assumptions. Even Moses himself made assumptions. But then he realized that God alone can work miracles based on people's free will. Miracles cannot be forced. And we must not forget that. And this is how we have de-unified. We had been divided, and we're not defending each other in society because we want to force our will on someone else. We must not abandon each other to the slaughterhouse, to continual antichrist, anti-weakness. We must fear God more than humans in order to receive that fulfillment and God's wonderful presence and fellowship. But if we excommunicate, it is so that you could repent more and you could be humbled more. So this is how God's teaching will attack demon spirits. If we excommunicate, it means you are doing some serious sin, such as apostasy, or you have abandoned the fact that you must fear God more than fear humans, and this is why you have been executed by the Spirit of God and excommunicated by the Spirit of God. You're no longer part of the members of the believers because your heart is set on human gods, human worship, that means fluttering humans, constantly admiring human beings more than God, or you are constantly fearing human beings more than God. So you're no longer a member of the believers. You're the same as the faithless, perverse generation. So you're now underscore in danger of backsliding and losing your salvation. But if you work out your salvation in fear and in trembling, survive God's anger, allow God's discipline, pray more, be humbled more, wait for God's guidance, remove idolatry, always seek, knock on the door will open to you, always resist paganism. So even if I may celebrate Christmas or paganist things, I never mix up my faith with paganism. But at the same time, I don't want to put children's souls in hell. To say, oh look, Mum, that family could do it, why can't I do it? So we always have to be very gentle, tender loving care, and also discipline our children. Let your no be no and your yes be yes. And don't be so much of a false teacher that you could put children's souls in hell by being too strict in the sense of focusing more on what the devil is doing and not focusing more on what God is doing. So we do need to change and rearrange things and not entirely stop certain things. Because when you stop certain things, it can make matters worse for children to end up deeper into hell. So in other words, if you play with fire, you get burnt, but how would they know what a burn is unless that you allow them that freedom to be slightly burnt? So then you have to make the changes and the reference point to that. So it's very complicated. It's not simple for children and for adults in the reference of being united together. Means keeping the rules of Christ relevant for today. It does not mean I must be afraid of eating from a restaurant or be afraid of confronting paganism or be afraid of false teachers confronting me. It doesn't mean that. It means we overcome evil with good. The forces of evil does not mean that I'm sharing my life with evil. It means I'm confronting it. To say I will not be more afraid of your music or your games or your films. Got a telephone number ringing. I wasn't expecting any call early morning. I'm not answering it. But that background noise is very terrible. And so anyone we associate with, when we come across as confused or more fearful of them, the more you make a non-believer, inadequate, not enough, confused. You then go beyond of making them feel uncomfortable. They feel attacked. So to say, I have a human right not to be associated with you, can put that individual in the category of being antisocial. Can, but it's wrong to do so. So we can be incriminated for saying, I don't want to associate with you. However, if we do it the other way around, to say that I can still say hello, I can still have a little chit chat, but I'm not going to the deep end with you. I'm still having that civil right to acknowledge your presence as a non-believer, as the opposition or as a rival. But it does not mean that I have your association connected to me. It doesn't mean that I'm avoiding your association. It means I am overcoming the forces of evil. To say I acknowledge you, but I limit you. And that is how we overcome evil, overcome forces of evil. I acknowledge you, but I will not avoid you. Because when they feel that when the abuser feels you're avoiding them, or when a backslider who is losing their salvation, and they feel that you can no longer have fellowship, you're excommunicating with them, when they sense that, their souls can go deeper into hell. So it's really important to remain slightly in touch. I acknowledge you. I know where you are. And just to let you know, we're not together. We're not united. I'm not associated with you. But just to let you know, I am not avoiding you. So I think these details are really important because we don't want a temporarily we're in danger when we abandon our Christian beliefs. We're in danger when we believe it's temporary, because it becomes a permanent condition. Connected to the Antichrist. I'm not associated to the Antichrist, and I'm not going to be forced or enslaved by the Antichrist. Even if I have no choice in the matter, and I am enslaved and forced to be associated with the Antichrist because of slavery, I can still say, I'm not avoiding you. I acknowledge you're different from me. I acknowledge your empty speculations. I acknowledge that you're offended. However, my intention is for you to realize that we're distinctive, we're different, even if you are offended. So this is how we are leading in our Christian faith or religious faith, so that it isn't about the attack, it is about separating ourselves but from them and remaining on the surface with them, not going into the deep end. Enables them to come to repentance and to make them see how my community is not the same as LGBT community. That my civil rights are not the same as their civil rights. Even if I'm under the bad leadership, or even if I'm under a slave master. So that's what I've just tried to explain. The more you make them inadequate as a merciless individual who is typical tyrant or a false teacher, preacher, the worse things the situation gets. So either we're God's people, we are from God, or we're not. We're born of God or we're not. So the world system, if you're a friend with the world systemic abuse of the devil, this is the same theme. You're an enemy of God. This theme will never change forever, till the end of time, from the beginning of time to the end of time. Because systemic abuse is everything to do with a conscience that only lives based on desire, or a conscience that only lives based on small-mindedness. One extreme of being too small-minded, the other extreme of being too open-minded. You could be too open-minded and cause sin for yourself and sin for someone else. So either way, being small-minded or too open-minded can cause problems. So faith without works is dead, and works without faith is dead, according to Romans chapter 4. And so we need both. We cannot have one or the other without the other. And we don't want to lose our salvation. We have to put right what was wrong and personify the fact that the devil's in the detail. How much more should God's people be in the detail? Within dangerous situation in darkness and within light of a safe situation. We have to do both. The worst thing I've ever experienced is seduction. Especially for singles versus couples, or you've just started a relationship with someone and you need true witnesses, not only eyewitnesses. So this type of bondage is bad. The same as invisible chains versus the bond of being connected to someone because I want to, not because I have to. So we need to, there's no formula. It's, how can I say? There's no formula. It's knowing it's acknowledging the difference between what's right and wrong, what is harmful, how to help without harm. But sometimes you have to harm in order to help, or help in order to harm. If it's dealing with destroyers and betrayers, you have to harm them, because it does hurt to remove. It hurts them to have part of their personality disappear, or it does cause them harm. Similar to medication, tasting your own poison, it can hurt them to remove a demon spirit. And never allow the other type of demon spirit to receive a gift that they don't want, or that they would that they hate themselves, that they are their own worst enemy. It's the worst thing to do, is to give somebody a gift who hates themselves. Very difficult life they've got as their own enemy. Even God will be their enemy. And I was there. It's a vicious cycle of sin, where the evil forces dominate your life and your soul and your body. There's a huge sensitivity of removing your carnal, your fleshly desires, and understanding psychology, psychiatry with great sensitivity, not dominion. Because we cannot be vindicated ourselves through our own revenge. Only God, vengeance belongs to God. So to destroy sin and I've never done self-harm, but I have hated myself. I have been my own enemy. I was tempted to do self-harm during torture. However, I resisted. I surrendered to God, and I was no longer submitted to the devil. Even when I was pressured and constantly taunted and tormented. So this is how we have this intense scrutiny on the subject of salvation. How you could lose your salvation, particularly from the basic point 1 and point 2. It can be a goal to look forward to. Well done, my good and faithful servant. It cannot be achieved, but at the same time, it can be accomplished. So we can have a task, we can have a job to do with God's help. So we can accomplish the job from start to finish. You start a project, then you finish a project through long suffering. But it cannot be achieved in your own credentials, in your own self-sufficiency, in your own self-preserving. Because we have entrusted ourselves as Christians to ask God to enable us. And so there's a huge difference between an achiever and accomplishing. So basic accomplishment, doing a job, not like a robot, but following instructions, and it's also reflecting on maturity. I don't want to follow anybody's instructions where I can where my foundations could be destroyed. So who do you trust? Nowadays, you can't even trust your doctor. You can't even trust Anybody. It's how bad it is. Everybody's made it normal to lie. So the alternative to lies is the truth. However, the truth can hurt more than the lie if you're so stubborn and so divided in the aspect of having bad pleasures. So we have to have that instinct and intuition correct so that we can have more humanity, not inhumanity. And a proper relationship with each other based on our conditions and circumstances, so nothing is warped, nothing is confused. This is where Jesus did he was like on a mountain, but it wasn't on a mountain, was it? I need a drink. My throat's gone dry. I need a dink. The servant on the mount, almost mountain, in Matthew chapter 5, 34 to 37. So no one can be good in their own effort, in their own achievements, but we can accomplish a lot of things through faith and work. So this is how I have exposed my opposition in society and my rival. So it's really important to do this video, which I don't plan to post until probably not today, probably tomorrow, in the participation of being a priestess, prophetess, and also a person. We can't forget to only be professionals and not be a person. So I'm closing this video now in the partaking of realizing who my boss is. He's enthroned in heaven. He's coming back to earth. He's promised humanity to relieve us from sin, to release us from sin, and to give us a new planet and a new body. I'm Maya Maria Marina. I'm also known as Mimam. Bye-bye.